Okay, this is the final recitation, believe it or not, in the arc of these Fab Academy recitations. The last one, and often the most popular one, is on startups. And so we have a great group ranging from pre-startup to early startup to mature startup, and then we'll end with some of the supporting things coming from that. So let's see, we have about 6 groups, so about 10 minutes or so per topic, and questions throughout. Post questions to the chat if it's really urgent, you can unmute. And so first one, if you take over the screen, is Vanessa from Peru and currently in Virginia.
Good morning, everybody. I will present my screen. Please, could you confirm my screen is working? Okay, thank you. And hello, my name is Vanessa Caicho. I am from Peru. I am furniture designer and architect, and I am CEO and co-founder of iFurniture, digital carpentry and woodworking design. It's a startup from Peru that was born in a Fab Lab, in Fab Lab Uni in 2014. And that proposes an innovating solution for the design and furniture industry using digital fabrication. And so the history of iFurniture started in my grandfather, because I am carpenter so many years ago. And I remember when I was a child, I always worked with my grandfather in his shop in Lima, Peru, but always working in a small traditional carpentry workshop in the first floors of my house. So I remember a lot of techniques of digital, I'm sorry, a lot of traditional techniques about carpenter. So in 2014, I found Fab Lab Uni, and I remember I started working in a router CNC. It was my favorite machine into the Fab Lab. So I decided to merge the traditional carpentry with digital fabrication, doing some first experiences and testing in laboratories like a Fab Lab Esan, TechSoup, Uni, and Fab Lab Peru. And I was part of the team of Fab Lab Peru, and I started my researching, proving how we can integrate the digital manufacturing in traditional carpentry. So after that, I founded iFurniture as a startup. So why I founded a startup? Because I recognize the real estate environment is actually growing in my country, and I found a good idea to commercialize furniture and to grow this idea in a laboratory to enter to the business environment that try to be sustainable and try to always improve our skills in digital fabrication in a real space. So I remember in that time, I started introducing my idea and my proposal for different businessmen and carpenters companies and retailers, telling about how we can customize furniture in the industry and how we can sell it by e-commerce in an online version, and then how people and users can always receive this technology in their houses. That this is the proposal, and more of this proposal is improve the carpentry industry, carpenters and designers, and create an ecosystem. So in this research, I remember we found the problem of the carpentry industry in my country: rigid furniture, unique measures, repeating designs. So with those ideas and problems, I remember we always found opportunity in digital fabrication with this machine. So the opportunity is not for the technology, the opportunity is for the community. Designers and carpenters working together with technology, automation, and proposing to improve our industry in my country. After that, we created a platform to customize furniture, a platform where the users can choose a furniture, then propose different measures, and then buy in an online version, and then receive in their houses, like you buy maybe a shoes, or you buy maybe other kind of stuff in your house. Same for furniture. 80% of users always are remodeling their spaces every time, and 90% of the carpenters always want to use digital fabrication. And we created this online customized furniture platform. In the beta version, actually, we are working on that, and you can to choose dimensions, materials, thickness. You can customize your furniture by online, and then you can buy it, and we receive the information, we assemble the furniture, and then you can receive in your house. So we are supporting this project with software technology CAD/CAM. So it's one of the big goal for us to try to customize a lot of furniture in the same time, because it's a lot of work, and we are trying to always improve our skills in designs, like this kind of software that is very useful for us. And then we go to a fab lab, and then we fabricate it, we cut in the router machine, and then we assemble it like this video. So this is the idea. This is the idea to improve our production. And the social part of this startup is to create a community of carpenters in different countries. We started in Peru, in Lima, with a pilot, and working with carpenters, sending information, and always making workshops with them. And actually, our business model is scalable and replicable, because we can support this project with different fab labs around the world. So actually, we are working in a carpentry ecosystem, creating a community of digital carpenters, promoting this idea and this proposal with fab labs to be sustainable, like a business model. And then we are working in woodworking programs and replicating the experience of Peru. So, but the best part and the future for me that I really love is to work with women. Women always want to operate machine. This is very, very motivating for me, because they want to learn not just design furniture, they want to operate a machine and work with carpenters. And this integration is the social impact for our startup. This is the best part for me, because I am making more friends and girls like me that they love carpenters, because they have histories similar like my history. Like their fathers are carpenters, or maybe their grandfathers, or their cousins. So they want to integrate, and the technology give them the opportunity to integrate in technology and digital fabrication. Finally, this is my team in Peru. It's superpower boys and girls. They are working with me actually by remote. And this is our video that always we are promoting our furniture startup in social media. You can find us in Instagram and Facebook. So you can include the demo that I will share you the demo. You can find the demo in this website, ifurniture.la, and you can click here in test a prototypes. So our ask is if you can to check the demo by online like me, and try to check the material and the dimensions, and then please give us a feedback, because we are a startup and actually we are validating our business model online. So you can leave your comment here and send them feedbacks. So the idea is to validate with you our startups, continue improving and sharing our knowledge with everybody. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Vanessa. Great great vision, great progress, great team. I think there are a lot of people watching who are be eager to both be customers and participate. And you answered the question I was going to ask, which is how you're going to do the distributed fulfillment. Very exciting.
Yes, that's the future. I think is a goal to be very integrated furniture designers, women carpenters in the same ecosystem to improve our industry.
That's great. Okay, next, Japi, take over from Madrid.
Hello everybody. I'm gonna share my screen, also the whole screen, and yeah. So yeah, it's been a while since I made Fab Academy. It's 10 years already. So the idea is to tell you, how this has changed me and the way I work. How Fab Academy experience has what has done in the way I work. So this is me before Fab Academy. So as an architect, I was dealing already with digital fabrication, but more in terms of designing. I was using digital tools, to design, and then this is a piece of a facade in a building that I was doing back then. So I was more like a designer and architect using digital tools, and other people using the machines were making them, and I like very much this picture because that's me after Fab Academy. It's not that I stopped doing digital fabrication. I was still doing digital, designing with digital tools, but I was getting dirty, with it, back to the workshop, back to the, touching the materials, touching the wood, the plaster, whatever, So it's how the Fab Academy and all this education, brings you back to the workshop, and then you don't communicate your designs in terms of someone else doing them, but you actually do them, right? So I'm going to show you a couple of product designs, early designs back then, just after Fab Academy, that I think are relevant in these terms. This is small ones, but this is a winery rack, that I made with Alex, the guy who was with me in the picture. And this is a winery rack. The winery building, is by Calatrava, Santiago Calatrava, and it's a very iconic roof. So we just took, one of a part of the roof and used it as the winery rack itself, And so then I was able, to go through all the process of it, as a craftsman, not only designing but making, So I think that was a huge change in the way I was working, back then. And another very important project, is this one, because again, it's a small one, it's this faceted bowl and and jar. But this is when I started my contact with ceramics, and I really fell in love with this material. So it was kind of an organic evolution, to go from this to 3D printing, 3D print with ceramics, with it, which is the main thing I'm gonna talk today, right? So, which is, and then we started this project which is called Jet Clay, and going to the website. Jet Clay is about 3D printing with ceramics, and another very important thing, that I learned, this relation with the intellectual property of the things that we create, the knowledge that somehow we create. Because back then in 2017 we started this, and we wanted to print big pieces of ceramics. So there weren't really systems already built, 3D printers and extrusion systems that you could buy, right? They were quite small. So then we said, well, fuck, so maybe we need to make them, So that's what we did, we with all the knowledge that is back then in places with like Fab Labs, maker spaces, meeting crucial people, you know, that then you learn how to make these things, you know, someone like me coming from the design field. And you know, a common question was, okay, so what do you do with this? You know, obviously all these designs are open, you know, in Wikifactory. So a question was, you know, how, you know, what to, if we're going to sell the machines, you know, if we're going to patent them and all these things. And then actually what we're doing is doing workshops and then sell this somehow, like hardware as a service, because what we do, you know, we're hired by people, you know, because you know, it's not easy to build these machines, you know, and these entities, you know, that usually like maker spaces or education institutions, you know, hire us to build the machines, and not only build the machines, but usually making a bootcamp, a week or 2 weeks bootcamp with designers, artists, you know, and we teach them how to, you know, how to use the machines, how to develop their ideas, their concepts into, you know, ceramics, 3D printed products or pieces of art. And this is our, you know, global globalization plan for jet clay. I mean, we have done this already in Spain, in several places, Europe, and Chile. In Chile, there is a guy making this by his own, you know, and we try to help him as much as possible. And we're building this in Auckland this summer because we're going to bring this machine to Burning Man and replicate something that we did last year, which is 3D print. Oh, participant is close. Fuck. Wait, one moment. I cannot go well. Yeah. Sorry. And then go into. We did this in the. It's like the Burning Man that we do here in Spain, you know, in the Monegros Desert. So we brought the 3D printer, and then we printed the hippies of the event, you know, with the material, you know, not bringing the clay, you know, not bringing clay, but actually using the soil, the dust, you know, that this desert has, that is very rich in clay, you know, in clay. So the idea is to do this very same idea in Burning Man this summer. So it plays with the with this idea of leave no trace, which is mandatory in these events. And actually, we leave these pieces there, right? Because at the end, it's just dust with water and some digital magic, right? An extrusion of this material. So another piece of art that I wanted to share with you, you know, that it's not on the website or no, it's this work with Lola Zoido, and well, it's not working there. Here, one moment, that it stopped working. Yeah. So these pieces that play with this idea of, you know, is this nature, is this artificial, you know, it's like a new way of nature mixed with, you know, these digital technologies. So this is what this is about. And something very, very important that we are involved right now, important for us, is to create our own products. So in these terms, we have just created these porcelain lamps. You know, has different versions, you know, like desktop and hanging ones. That, you know, the detail of it's a very thin layer of porcelain. It is a single material lamp, so the only, you know, there's no plastic. There's a light bulb and some cables. And with this very fine layer, you can have this, you know, beautiful translucency. And the last project I wanted to show you that is right now on the desktop is this swamp cooler. It's like a evaporative cooler, you know, made out of ceramics, you know. And what it tries is to use the ceramics, you know, as our ancestors were already using, you know, as an evaporative cooler product or tool, you know, and see what the 3D printing with ceramics could do and could help this to work, right? So it's a quite complicated piece, but you know, it's you know, you put the water on top of it, you know, and then there is this inner very complex 3D printer structure, you know. So there is a fan, you know, at the bottom, so then the dry and hot air goes from the bottom and goes down, you know, more humid and cold. And you know, with this project we want to, I mean, not to stop using the air conditioning, but at least, you know, helping your microclimate to, you know, to reduce the energy consumption, you know, and use less AC, right? So yeah, that's it.
So before you drop, Tom, do you have a question for Japi? Tom, your hand's up.
Oh.
If not,
I'm sorry about that.
okay.
Oh, I can't hear you very well, Neil. Is it me or? Oh.
I think it's Neil.
Yeah.
If we all raise your hand, we know that it's Neil. If you can move. Okay.
Talk briefly about your business model. Who pays whom for what?
All right. So.
Oh, I see. I think there's a net. Here, I'm going to stop my video.
Okay. Business model. So we do several things, right? For instance, right now this project is being incubated in the Circular Economy Institute here in Madrid. So the idea is that this one, I mean, this is like in development. So the idea is this one at the end of this year, next year, we have like a clear vision of how to, you know, how to place it on the market, you know, and improve its market readiness. But mainly, you know, what, you know, if you go to the, we offer the service of, what we mainly do is offer the service of 3D printing with ceramics, but it's always a consultancy one, you know, because this is not like plastic, you know, it has many, you know, many things to know. It's a soft material. So usually it's a consultancy. So designers or artists, you know, come to us with a project, an idea, and then we help them to develop it. You know, that's mainly the, you know, the income right now. You know, like twice or three times a year we do these workshops that I was talking about, and in more daily basis we teach, you know, all these related of using 3D printing with ceramics in universities here in Madrid in several ones.
Great. Okay. Beautiful work. Really striking. Thank you. So now we're going to go to Leon and in Spain and Pablo.
Hello, everyone. I will share my screen so you can see the slides. So my history is about a personal history, not just a startup or something like this. I'm a father of three. We have the computer here. I'm in León, so it's a small town. So we have many issues with things, but I think we have a great history here for those who try to start something in your local communities. So the first one, I was a computer teacher. I teach networking, Windows, Linux, whatever. So I'm a software guy. Then I find the Fab Academy in Fab Lab León. It was an experience that changes my life, not just mentally, but just my way to earn money. So my mind blows up. It totally changes what I did until then. And then after making the Fab Academy, I see this phrase from someone called Neil Gershenfeld that said the objective of digital fabrication is not what you can buy, but you cannot buy. So this gives me the idea of there are things in the world that don't even exist today. So you can try to find it and then merge it to the real world. And I love this idea to transform ideas to physical things. Then I read the book of Chris Anderson, The Long Tail, because, okay, I'm a lonely guy. I know how to make things, but I'm just a normal person, I hope. So I cannot compete in mass production or with big competitors like I don't know, Amazon or any other IKEA thing. But this book told me that there are many things that are not selling because they are not profitable for the big companies. So you can be there in the long tail to sell things that don't nobody wants to buy it massively, but they can make it by one and sell it to the right people. So after that, I came with the idea of founding Fabrico tus ideas. Fabrico tus ideas is manufacturing ideas for anyone. Okay, this is my idea. Then I became like a entrepreneur or CEO, as you said, in 2015. And until today, I have this idea working. At the left, we have me in a young manner, very, I don't know how to say it, very illusional with everything I made. And the right is like a super adult people that also plays with computers and so on. So what I'm doing now in Fabrico tus ideas is that my clients are freelancers, people that make things and sells to another people, but they want something that it's not in the market. It's not selling, they cannot find it, or maybe just find in the long markets in Asia and something like this, and just need some kind of tricky or different things. So I'm focusing more in to be an I plus D for small business or solopreneurs, people that wants to sell something different and they don't know where to make it, how to start finding the place to become with their ideas in a physical way. So for them, I mean, for me, it's like difficult, but for them that they don't know about Fab Labs or don't know about digital fabrication, it's like a nightmare because they have to contact with the big companies. So I start to make it big things. We have here an office completely furniture doing for me. This is our office in Madrid. To small things. This is a draw of the kid of a friend. Then I transform it to a little piece of acrylic. And for me, it's so valid making big things than making the small things. So it's something that is valid to a people that is not me. That's why I made their ideas, not mine. Here are some examples. You can, I don't know, decorate businesses in my local town. You can make a corporate walls for events. You can make little things for very beautiful walls engraved in a wood. So you can make everything you want. We know this, making the Fab Academy and belonging to a Fab Lab. But for the people outside our small area of comfort, they don't know where to make it. So I started with this. Sorry. Yeah, what I'm doing this. I do this because empowers myself. I love to make things. I can learn through making things because everything I made in Fabrico tus Ideas is a challenge because everybody has a different idea for everything. It's like, okay, we start from the raw every time. And I do this for having fun. I really have fun making things for other people. And yeah, the right you have, if I can live or spend some money with with the things I made, will be great. So as you said in some TEDx conference, I can locally produce interesting things for people who need different things. And the best part of this is that I can make it, I can bring them physically, and I can see their faces because they don't realize that this thing, that the idea comes to a physical thing and they have it in your hands. It's like, for me, it's easy, but for them, it's like a super wow effect. And I love this time when I put the things in their hands. Yeah, I face problems sometimes. The first one was the administration. This is the biggest one problem everybody in the world, I think, can see. But the funny thing here is that I sit down with my employee of the tax authority, and because here you have to declare what you are going to do. And he say, okay, please explain what your main job, what you are doing. And then I start to explain everything I can do, not but what I'm doing, but okay, I can 3D print, I can make furniture, I can make, and the guy goes crazy. It's like, what? So, because you have like little epigraphies, like a places where you can check what you're doing. And each check goes to you have to pay for. So finally, the guy is very, very happy to us, because finally we find that I will be a furniture maker, whatever it means. And then I can go from here to whatever. Yeah, the other thing is that I know many things, but my imposter syndrome is like, okay, I know some things, but I'm sure that everybody knows more than me. Right now I'm seeing Vanessa, I'm seeing Happy. They are like super top people, but the reality is that you know what you know, and you can apply it to the things you do. And this is the most problem for me personally, like in starting this company or this startup. And the other is that you need to be in the middle of how you see yourself and how others see you. So you have your personal brand. You have to know what you can do, what you not, and then show it to the people. So finally, I found myself being like an orchestra man, playing everything, doing everything in my own, making marketing, research, relationship, trying to make emails, learning things. So for me, it's very difficult, but it's really, really challenging. So I like this so much, being everything. I learn many of everything. So which are the advantage of being?
Sorry.
Yep.
Pablo, 1 minute left.
Okay. I can be fast. I can make one-day fabrication with local delivery. I can be ecological. I can use material inside my town and from local suppliers. They are super happy to buy from them. I can collaborate with anyone I want, people that make crafting or local vendors. So I can collaborate with them, and I can be low cost, because not about the price, but the units. I can start with one unit and then go. So for me, it's like a super thing. And I have this symbiosis with my Fab Lab. I have this beautiful Fab Lab in our town, Fab Lab Leon, that has machines, has the knowledge, and has the orders, people that begging them to make things. And I'm in symbiosis with them, outsourcing these things that the people begs. I have income that goes to Fab Lab by renting the machines, and I gave them visibility so more people know what a Fab Lab is. So yeah, Fab Lab starts, thanks to Fab Lab Leon starting this thing, and could be on the edge. So if you want to contact me, feel free. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Pablo. So far we've seen early stage startups. Now we're going to see 2 more mature ones. So Alan, take over from Chapel Hill.
Hey, can you hear me? Coming through? Great. All right, great to be here. I'm Ilan. I'm a co-founder of Shaper Tools. And very briefly, I'm going to tell you what we do, just so you have some background. We make a handheld CNC router called Origin. It lets you cut freehand, but following a digital file very accurately. And the way it works, it has a camera. It looks down at the material. It sees where it is. And then you can follow a digital file that you've placed on the workspace. As you move, it's constantly adjusting to keep you exactly on the path, even if you're a little bit off. So that's the general idea. And you can do a lot of things with it. This is one of my favorites. It's a huge musical staff that's been inlaid into a hardwood floor. This is around 20 feet across. You can take the tool to the job. Also, an example is this guy on a snowmobile taking it up to a ski lodge to modify a sign that was hanging in the lodge. But there's a lot of more pedestrian things, a lot of joinery, all sorts of projects. And if you're interested, you could check out these two tags, Shaper Origin or Shaper Made, on Instagram. That's probably the best place to see thousands of different projects. So I wanted to mainly talk about how I got into this, beginnings of the company, and a little bit about the lessons I've learned along the way. So my kind of introduction to digital fabrication in general was in 2007, 2008. I was a student, bachelor's student in Neil's lab, and I did my bachelor's thesis on rapid prototyping of rapid prototyping machines. And this is work that's continuing. It's kind of a continuing theme, as you well know, at CBA. But like a lot of people, after I graduated, I went and got a job. I worked for a design firm, but they were really cool and let me take Neil's class, How to Make Something That Makes Almost Anything. It's kind of the follow-on class to How to Make Almost Anything. And that's where I really kind of got the bug for building digital fabrication machines. You can see Neil in this photo, just his hair back there, and a few other people, Marcelo, Max, who couldn't be here, but we're joined by David. And then I wanted to point out one guy, Skylar Tibbetts, who's a professor of architecture at MIT now, who was in the class, and he's going to play a small role in this story a little bit later on. So I went and I did start a company, but it wasn't Shaper at first. I quit my job and I wanted to commercialize some tools that we'd been developing, myself, Max, other people within CBA. And I shipped one machine total over the span of 2 years. It was this multi-fab machine, which was based off of this design we had done earlier. And then kind of wasn't making any money, started doing consulting work, helping people design tools that they were going to sell, like this milling machine, which also never made it to market. And so I was getting really exhausted of this, and I decided I'm going back to grad school. And maybe a month after I get back to grad school, I get an email from Skylar saying, hey, I know this guy, he's at MIT also, he has this idea for a handheld CNC router, and he's looking for a mechanical engineer to join Up forces. And this is him who became my co-founder, Alec, and the one-axis prototype of Origin that he brought in a Tupperware bin to our first meeting. It didn't look nearly as glamorous as it does in this photograph. It was covered in sawdust. But anyways, it was really cool. And I was also kind of in the habit of just saying yes to things at the time. And so I said, sure, I'll work on it. And that led us to kind of a bunch of work together, starting with the goal of how do we make this into a two-axis machine, allow it to correct in two directions at once. And so I made a mock-up. We designed a prototype, turned that into a prototype, which became a part of the paper that we published. And this whole time, we hadn't really said we're starting a company, but he did give me a sheet of paper that said, if we do start a company, I'm going to give you X small percentage of the company for the work that you've done to date. But as it turned out, we talked more and we're like, yeah, this would be really fun to go in together on as co-founders. So we started working on it as it was called ToolSense at the time. And we used that same prototype. We started with some incubators like the Mass Challenge, a local incubator in Massachusetts. And things were going okay, but we decided we really need to raise some money. That was one of the goals of the incubator. And so this is when things got a little bit Silicon Valley. This is us in Mountain View, California, in a woodshed demoing to one of our investors, actually the first investor who invested in us. And I was pretty daunted about the whole idea of investment and sorry about that. I think one thing that was pretty cool about our product is that it didn't have a very obvious business case up front. And the reason that was cool is because it meant that the people who invested in us really believed in the product and the team, but also really got what we were trying to do. And when you're picking investors, it's really nice. It's really good to have people that really believe in what you're doing or really excited about what you're trying to do, because you go to them for a lot of advice besides money. And so with that money, we went and we did a few things. The second thing we did, I guess in parallel, two parallel things. One was building a team. And I want to call out one person in particular, although we have many really awesome people that we work with. this guy, Joe Hebenstreit. Alec and I realized pretty early that neither of us were really cut out for CEO material. We were both pretty technical. We didn't have a lot of experience. And Joe was a very early kind of angel investor. And he was working for Google, working on the Google Glass team at the time. And we decided to hire him as our CEO. And then other people on Google Glass heard what he was doing, and they left and joined us also. And before long, we actually had a significant fraction of the Google Glass team working on Shaper Origin. In parallel, we had been working on this prototype with a designer, and this was our first. We had many prototypes, but this is like the first one that really looked like a product and felt like a product. And the first thing Joe said when he joined was, we need to make 10 of these. And I had just finished making 3 and I was exhausted, but I was like, okay. And so we built 10, we got them out to beta testers. We did a lot of testing and we realized this is not the product we should ship. It's got too many issues. We were ready to pull the trigger on a Kickstarter campaign. And we decided, no, we've got to hold off. We've got to redesign this one more time. And that was kind of against the advice of a lot of investors who were saying, you know, this whole like break stuff early philosophy, that we should just launch with it, that if you think you're ready, it's too late. I think when you're building power tools and trying to build trust with customers, that's the wrong approach. And so we spent a lot of time sweating details on redesigning it, even down to like the fasteners and specifying where the Loctite went on the fastener and things like this. All the testing we did with salt fog to see what's going to corrode first. It was a huge effort. One other thing that happened was we found a partner for the spindle. Spindle is a really important part of the machine, but it's something that's pretty commodity and wasn't really making sense for us to design from the ground up. So we ended up partnering with Festool, which is one of kind of the premier power tool manufacturers, German company, and they built the spindle for us. And finally,
Alon, 2-minute warning.
Okay, thank you. So finally, we ended up shipping in 2017. This is the first unit off the factory. We had the auspicious honor of being on Wood magazine, on the cover of Wood. It's not Time magazine, but we'll take it. And we ended up kind of in total, when you look back on it, it took 6.5 years. We had 7 major prototypes, around 20 people, and a lot of parts go into this, particularly 50 tooled parts, which means that we had injection molding tools, a lot of investment up front, and a lot of risk. But it was really worth it because in the end, we end up with a product that has very few returns and has stood the test of time. And then at the end of 2018, Festool is actually owned by a parent company called TTS, Tool Technic Systems. And we had a relationship with them and they decided that they wanted to acquire Shaper. So we went under their umbrella in December 2018. And that's not the end of the story. I'm still at Shaper. We're still doing a lot of stuff. We've done 10 software releases. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned from this is, well, 2 things. One, the customer's always right, especially when it comes to user experience. Rather than telling them, oh, you need to figure out how to do it the way we think it should be done, we're constantly learning from them. And the other thing is that software is hard. You always hear hardware is hard, but I think from a customer perspective, it's the software that's hard because software can change under their feet. And it's really difficult to keep it from slipping backwards. Like that takes a surprising amount of effort. And then to push it forwards is even harder. So that's kind of one big lesson that I've learned from all this. We've kind of had the opportunity to finally, in the last few years, to start spreading out into a lot of other tracks. Like we have a lot of accessories like workstation, plate, some software that is paid for now. We've done things like premium projects where you can...
Time to wrap up.
Okay, buy projects and hardware. And basically, I mean, that's it. I just wanted to share a few things where things have gone in Studio, which is a design tool. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Very inspiring, Ark. Next, we'll go to David in Berlin.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. All right. All right. Can you see my screen? Great. Okay. So, hey, my name is David. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Formlabs. I don't want to run out of time because that sounded stressfully long, but great presentation. All right, so very quickly about me, I'm Hungarian. Spent most of my early life there, went to the media lab, started a company, and then been at Formlabs for about almost 10 years. But important for this story, I'm actually started a Fab Lab as well in Budapest, and I couldn't find an image, but Neil was gracious enough to present at our opening party. And I'm really happy to report that the place is still operational, although we just got kicked out of our lease, so we were moving. Took how to make almost anything at MIT, which was probably the class that impacted my trajectory the most. Made this graffiti pendulum robot, which is a lot of fun. And then we'll skip a couple of years ahead, but started at Formlabs right after our Kickstarter campaign, which was the largest Kickstarter campaign in technology up until somewhat recently. Raised $3 million there, and then spent the next 10 years working on different type of stereolithography and also selective laser sintering machines. So we are in the resins and powders business. And Neil told me that many of you know about us, so I'm going to skip a deeper introduction here. But I think the theme that I really wanted to share is that making a few of something is really, really hard. And I think that the best way to demonstrate that is how hard it was to build our first prototype. So making quantity 1 on the left, that's the first prototype of the Form 1. Then making a couple for the kind of like works like prototype. This is where we figured out how to make it a little bit more compact. First industrial design, kind of looks and feels like prototype. And then building tens of them, as Ilan also said, extremely difficult. And then building thousands. This is our first factory in the US, was a real challenge. And then figuring out where to make it later on. And then this graph that is very ill-defined and changes all the time is really hard to dial in where to build for the right quantity. But I'm glad to say that 10 years later, we're still alive and we're doing pretty good. We have about 900 people, shipped well over 100,000 of our printers, and many hundreds of millions of parts produced. So we're very glad. And this all started in a lot of ways in Neil's lab with Max, Natan, and David Craner, kind of kickstarting the company in 2011. We're a product company and we're very proud of it. So that means that we make a lot of different things. We make printers, all of our materials and software. We actually acquired a chemical company in Ohio. So we do that too, which is really cool and unique. And we exist in this larger world. So a lot of times people ask us, okay, 3D printing, great. It's actually not that big of a market. There is a much larger market of desktop digital fabrication tools. I did have here a Shaper origin before, so I don't know where it went, but that belongs there. I don't know exactly. It's very hard to define how big it is. Ilan, if you have good numbers, please let me know. And then beyond that, there's digital fabrication tools and injection molding, and of course, the $12 trillion global manufacturing market. We exist because we want to give more access to anyone of these very powerful tools. I think that this is the single most important thing that we learned in class, that there are very few companies in the world that had access to these amazing tools before we came around, for example, or other companies that try to democratize fabrication. So this is a very worthwhile effort, and you pick up a lot of really interesting use cases and customers. I think that this is kind of where we want to go. And sorry for the comical drawing here, but we want to really build this kind of ultimate room where we will be able to have a lot of different tools that help you make stuff. So if you think about Formlabs, you think about anything that helps you make stuff. So I try to not just make this into a presentation about Formlabs, but really help you think about some lessons that I've learned. So I grouped it into 3 things at different scales. So at a 10-person level, if you do a Kickstarter, remember you need funding for the company, because Kickstarter is for cogs. Really important lesson. Most people forget about this and it can cause real problems. Work only on things that you personally believe in and you have a strong intuition about. If you are not a good mirror for your customers, then it's most likely going to fail. And everything always takes longer than you think. I think that we learned this in class as well, but I wanted to show you an interesting thing that I learned. This is at Formlabs, they lovingly call this the D factor, which is my D factor, which means how far we were off in estimation versus how long actually things took. It's a shocking thing that over a course of a 3-year product development cycle, I have been shockingly accurately wrong consistently, which means that I'm always 1.83 roughly off by how long it took versus how long it actually took. So,
David, there's a quick question. What is COGS? Explain that.
Cost of goods sold. So that means if you're producing a machine that on Kickstarter and it's $3,000, you're selling it for $3,000, it's most likely between $1,000 and $2,000 to make it. The Kickstarter money is for that, not to actually build the company, to hire the people to do the R&D. So if you're trying to build a company successfully, raise funding or have a plan for making the actual company succeed, and then take the money in so you have capital to invest and actually buy the raw material to build the machines. That's a lesson that we've learned. Important. At 100%, I think one thing that is really important to remember is that the most scale invariant problem that you will face at every given level is hiring the best people. And you can hire with the Moneyball principle. If you haven't watched the movie or read the book, please do. It's a really good one, which means that you can find the weirdos, the people that are uniquely applying to your particular company, and make them successful, even if everybody else thought that they're not the right people. And we've hired very successfully great people that became extremely successful, and they wouldn't have maybe at other companies. Once you have PMF, which is product market fit, go fast and carpet bomb. This is the right time to boldly invest in the direction that you're going. And if you're successful, expect that people are going to come after you. Competition, people copying you, disruptive innovation, litigation, we've seen all of it. And it's not a question of if it happens, it's just when. Finally, 1,000-person, we can really work hard at morale. At a 1,000-person company, you start thinking about things like, how are people doing? I mean, you start thinking about it earlier, but it becomes an extremely important part of like, how are people doing? How we're building teams. And there are a lot of things that you can do, but nothing beats good business. If you don't have a good business, you can still have bad morale. But if you don't have a good business, almost certainly you're going to have bad morale. So stay focused on building good business. For companies that have a hardware component, a lot of times your business is going to be driven by your product cycles, and you need to have good sales and marketing, but that's to maintain and grow you slowly. The big jumps in business is always going to be on products. Buying revenue doesn't work long term. You can do it for a little bit, but in Hungarian, we have a beautiful saying that the garbage truck always catches up with the dog. So I will let you think about that. And so, yeah, combining 2 and 3 is the most efficient way to go quickly. And wrapping up hopefully on time, we're hiring. And we have lots and lots of different positions. We have offices in Boston, Berlin, Budapest, Hungary, Tokyo, and a couple other places in APAC, and lots of different places. And I wanted to highlight the startup founder role, which is a mysterious yet great place for us to interact with people that we just cannot put in any other category. So please talk to me if you're interested. I left my email address there. That's it.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you, David. And I'm going to end, let me go to here with 2 things. So first is, as you just heard from David, there's a lot of demand for this sort of talent that comes through Fab Academy. And so we've made a few attempts at this, and this is a current version we're bringing to life. This is the jobs platform to fill in people with skills looking to be hired and people looking to hire. And there's even with tech cutbacks, there's an almost insatiable demand for people in the sweet spot of skills like David was describing. And so more is going to be coming on this jobs platform. Tom's asking about interns, and that's a good lead. Actually, transitionally between jobs and incubator, and it's a good note. I see Luciana. We're not distinguishing between jobs and interns, and we could have a separate category for intern placements, which is a nice idea. Last thing I want to do is, this has been an amazing group of people, and you're all kind of like icebreakers plowing through challenges. It's a pretty high threshold. And we've had a bad record historically of trying to pair inventors and entrepreneurs, where the Fab Lab inventors feel like the entrepreneurs aren't telling them anything useful. The entrepreneurs feel like the Fab Labs aren't paying attention. And I've recently realized that we were using a more traditional model to think about incubation. And in the same way that the Fab Academy helped pioneer this model of distributed education, where peers and mentors with machines in work groups locally are connected globally, we're now developing a distributed incubator. And so the idea is, rather than you going to the incubator, we want the incubator to come to you. And this is very much a work in progress, but the idea is to take people who come through the network we identify and help train, and pair them in the Fab Academy and Academy model with leading global mentors in a network. And so just to quickly introduce, I think some of them might be on the call. This is a group helping advise and helping to start mentor. Eileen, she's known among many other things for she invented the term unicorn as a VC. Blair, many of you know, started with working with underserved communities, has a background in tech. Calvin and Habib work closely with an incubator out of MIT. David and Eric are among the most thoughtful investors I know. Eric was on the Midas list from Forbes of the most successful VCs. And let's see, Elaine, you're on. Can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Super impressive just to listen to everyone's journey. Some are at the beginning and some have already achieved great success. But what I really loved someone talking about was talking about the fact that it's okay to actually not exactly know what your product or company is exactly going to do, but having that passion and that conviction, because I see that very consistently across a lot of tech-focused founders. But at the same time, you do need to have some intuition about where it's going to go and who might bite. In any case, what I do is I actually invest in sustainability based companies, primarily around hydrogen. I do that kind of globally, have, I guess, offices in Hong Kong. I'm currently sitting in Stockholm, and we also have offices in Hong Kong. And so a little bit different from what you guys are doing, but very inspired.
Great. And then Paul, can you explain the incubation work you do in Africa?
So unfortunately, I need to drop off for a 4 o'clock meeting, but great to hear from all of you. Thank you.
Okay, see you, Elaine. Paul?
Hi, nice to meet everyone. Great presentations. Yeah, so I've been working, I was an executive director for an incubator in Canada, and then I wanted to take my kind of talents to the developing world. And so I've been working in Africa, and we've actually have been working with a lot on the product development side of things. So, and we think that distributed incubation has a really good use case there, as does distributed manufacturing. So you can bring kind of low cost labs to the people in those communities, and they have really great ideas. It's just presenting them with the ability to realize those ideas. And so we've really been working on how to incorporate Fab Labs in the prototype and product design, and then how do we scale from there. And so we've been in Togo, but we're also expanding to Ghana, and our plan is to build more labs across West Africa as kind of these places where people can come to develop their products and prototypes.
Great, thanks, Paul. And then last on the list, Race Data is the founder of Analog Devices, one of our favorite chip companies. At MIT, if you've seen the Geary, dramatic Geary building, it's this data building. And he's very engaged in this vision of a distributed incubator. And so lots of work to come on it. But if you go back to, was it Pablo trying to explain to the tax person what he does and the challenge of administration? Part of this is to, and David's lessons, part of this is to take that accumulated experience and reduce the threshold for more people. I feel like we've done a great job in the Fab Lab network up to a point where you fall off a cliff, and this is to begin to support the next stages in that. So more to come on that. If you're interested, let me know. I'll be helping coordinate, and we'll be building out this mentor team to mentor as a group, but then starting to pair one-on-one on individual products and projects. And so with that, that's the startup recitation. It's a great tour through early, mid, and mature stage with a really impressive group of people. So let's thank all of them. And we keep this to an hour, so I'm going to stop recording. But if anybody wants to stay on for a few minutes, so I'm going to stop the recording